Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me for my late day edition of Cup of Ray here on the Bucs Report. Of course, again, this morning we're streaming on Bucs Report Facebook, we're streaming on Bucs Report YouTube, and we're also streaming on that Nick Citro Bucs Report Twitter page. I got to jump right in here because the reason why we had to have a show today, it was, I traveled back from Carolina yesterday, so much on the plate, still so much going on, but so much has been happening with your Buccaneers over the last couple of days, and so much news is coming up. I'm not going to waste any more time at all. I'm going to bring on the host of The Audible, Mr. Joshua Cole Allen. Joshua, how are you today, my friend?
Doing great, Ray. How you doing?
I'm good, except, like I was just explaining to everybody, I spent 10 hours on the road yesterday, and I was I was driving, so I'm driving, and my 13-year-old son's in the front seat, and he's not finding any sports podcasts. So basically, other than the pops I'm reading from Bucs Report on my phone, I missed everything. So fill us in on a couple of things that happened yesterday over here at the Advent Health Facility for the Buccaneers.
Well, one of the biggest news that came out this week, obviously, was LeSean McCoy, Shady McCoy, has agreed to sign a contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, adding to that running back room that's recently been hit with a wave of COVID reserve list placements on there. We heard about Keyshawn Vaughn earlier in the week, but it also got hit with Asa Cedric Ware and also rookie Raymond Calais. Both of those guys are added onto that list this week. So bringing in Shady gives you a little bit of a depth piece there in case these turn out to be bigger deals than what than just asymptomatic. If they were asymptomatic tests, especially in Keyshawn Vaughn's case, look for him to be reinstated off of that list, as soon as today, if not early next week at that point. But
Well, Josh, let me ask you about that. Just talking about the Shady, because that was huge news, right? And there's been people we've talked about, how much does he have left in the tank? And then you so astutely pointed out that he played on that Chiefs. He didn't play those 3 last games, and he still got the ring. He was on that Chiefs squad last season, right? And we talk about because a week and a half ago it was the Keyshawn, Vaughn and Rojo, Sean and Rojo, and then all of a sudden, Sean goes onto that COVID list, and we bring in the Shady, and with Shady, with limited touches he had last year in Kansas City, but still remembering back the phenomenal player that this guy is, especially with what's his number one good thing that Tom Brady is looking for in a running back?
He can catch that ball out of the backfield. So just bringing a guy on the backfield like that is going to be huge. But not only that, even with the Devontae Freeman, talk that was going on prior to that, he brings a veteran running back presence into this room. Well, Rojo's been in the league 3 years. You can kind of call his first year a mulligan. Last year was his real first year kind of getting, snaps as a normal contributor on the team. And his first year, obviously, with Bruce Arians in this offense. So going into year 3, it's always nice to bring a veteran back, to bring that guy along, and especially to mentor a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn, who has a similar style playing set as LeSean McCoy. He might protect the ball a little bit better than LeSean carrying that bread basket out there. But I mean, it's nice to bring that veteran presence in, and especially at the price it got him at. We know that Devontae Freeman turned down a $4.4 million deal with the Seahawks, which is why they went with Carlos Hyde. So to get him on a veterans minimum deal, he got that taste of the Super Bowl ring. He wants another one, and now it's just kind of further cementing his legacy. And if you look at Tom Brady's usage over his past, 10 years, 20 years in his career, he uses running backs in a different variety. The Patriots had 4 running backs that he regularly used. In Sony Michel, who is kind of like the Rojo comparison, more of the runner, not as much of a catcher, can still catch the ball out of the backfield, but isn't that guy you're relying to catch the ball on third down and be that pass protector. James White compares well with LeSean McCoy in that sense. Right. And then you have the young guy, with Rex Burkhead with Keyshawn Vaughn. So,
good comparisons. But what's funny for me is that we talked about this week. I want to get Andrew Big Board, Andrew Fubber's out there, and Andrew's coming in. I want to get him in here too, because I'm going to want to ask his opinion on his next question. And Josh, you first. That as many as the Buccaneers as Tom Brady, as he stepped into the Advent Health facility or he became a Buccaneer this offseason, how many of the younger guys have said, oh, I mean, how many guys have said, well, I was in diapers when you were a rookie, which I'm not sure if Tom, I'm sure Tom's used to hearing that, but now bringing in Shady McCoy at the running back position, don't you kind of get it? Don't you get the feeling that somewhere along the lines, Tom Brady's going to go up to LaShawn, going to Shady and actually shake his hand, maybe not so much in awe, but having known the career that Shady's had, Tom Brady's going to shake his hand and say, damn good to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime you bring in a veteran player with his resume, he's got over 500 receptions in his career. We've seen the things that he's been capable of doing. Yes, he's up there. He's 32. He's over the hill for running backs. I mean, 30 is usually the drop-off point. But he's not going to be asked to come in here and be that lead back. He's going to be that contributor on third down, maybe second down, split out wide, catching balls out of the backfield. He's good at pass protection. He's decent at pass protection.
Yes.
And the veteran presence he brings for those other running backs.
Right.
He can show them how to work on their craft and how to improve it. And especially someone who's, proficient as catching the ball as Shady, he can, kind of bring those guys both under their wings and help their career, while also helping his career. And, he's up there on the rushing list. If he can get some more, rushes up there and get another Super Bowl ring and be instrumental part of that, I mean, now you're kind of looking at a fringe Hall of Fame type player,
Well, let me ask Big Board this, Andrew. Let me ask you this. I mean, we see the Redskins, and they still have a running back there. He's been around the league for about 73 years. They still have Adrian Peterson, and Adrian Peterson, especially in the last couple of roles, has kind of started to feel like he's filling a role player where he comes in and he can just do it. What do you think that Shady McCoy can bring to this Buccaneers offense now?
First of all, gentlemen, thank you for having me on a nice Sunday. I'm still used to having Sundays where there's football. I mean, it is August, and I do live in Canada, so I should be having some sort of football, but the pandemic has definitely put a damper on that up here, so that's neither here or there. With McCoy coming to the Buccaneers, I mean, when I was just a mere caller into the show and thought I was making sense, and then Peter, respectively told me I wasn't, but still hired me on anyway. Me and him used to go back and forth about the running back room, and that if we were to bring in somebody like Tom Brady, we couldn't have just 2 to 3 running backs who all were about the same caliber. A bell cow type of running back. We couldn't have 3 of those. We had to have what Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, and Nick Foles, some of these guys who have had 4 running backs, all of different calibers, all of different skill sets and stuff like that. They had to have that, because when you bring in Tom Brady and he has had that for so many years, you can't tell a man at the back end of his career, I need you to adjust and just start handing the ball down to people who are more of receiving backs, or start throwing the ball to more people who are bell cow type running backs.
Andrew, let me ask you this. The funny thing is, you mentioned the Buccaneers when they were bringing in Rojo and they had Peyton Barber, and then they go in and they're bringing these running backs. Isn't one of the ironies there was that under Dirk Cotter, they didn't know their butt from a hole in the ground how to use those running backs. They were too busy trying to get those receivers fed on each and every play. So now the Buccaneers. Now let me ask you this, and let me ask you this, Joshua, because you seem to know this. I want to pull you away from that Bruins hockey game just a second. Go ahead, let's tell people out there. Joshua still he's got love for his Boston Bruins, so he's got his eye on the hockey game. Is today their actual game that counts toward the series? Is that
it's the round robin. It's not going well. It's 4-1 with half the third period pretty much over. Some rust on there. They don't have Raskin net, so they're relying on Halak, who was great during the season, but hopefully they can knock this rust off, because that top line is the best in the league when it's going, and it's just kind of it's faltering right now. But back to Buccaneers, because you people all like the Lightning anyways. So
let me ask you. Well, we're Lightning fans, but is it a best of 5 series? Is that the opt-in play?
No. So with the top teams, the Bruins, the Capitals, the Flyers, and your Lightning, they're doing a round robin. So they'll play each other one time, and then the team with the best ranking or record after that they'll be seeded 1 through 4 from that. So not a good look for today. Hopefully the other teams can all lose.
Early start. They're going to come back strong, the Broad Street Bullies, right? Or is that Philadelphia as the Broad Street Bullies?
But I don't know.
Andrew, I wanted to ask you, where's your hockey team playing today? Where's that?
What a
That was the greatest comment that you could have made too. My team. Yeah, my team is not playing until next year. I mean, my team doesn't win anything. I mean, we haven't won a cup in a couple of years, but I mean, we've won one before the Maple Leafs have, so there's that.
Wait a minute, Josh. Hey, Andrew, before we stole away your entire front office department, the Lightning, and when we started winning Stanley Cups, you're not going to get any. You're not going to get Bruins fans like Joshua, or you're not going to get Lightning fans like myself to just cry one shed a tear because you guys went through the '90s and those Red Wings were the most dominant team on ice.
You're done right. So I grew up watching. I believe 97 when Patrick Waugh and everybody started fighting in the third period and Kirk Maltby took out Claude Lemieux. I had my mother sit me down on her lap, point at the TV and says, son, the team that is currently wearing red and white, they do not forget. Remember that Detroit will never forget anything that ever happens to their team. And ever since that day, it's been Red Wings or bust.
No, that's okay, and nobody's perfect, so we don't hold it against you. But I wanted to work it back to the Bucs, though, Joshua, because you and I were talking about some things before the. Let me find them notes you sent me, because you sent me some great stuff. Oh, well, let's talk about first of all, who showed up that was still thinking about opting up as of just 3 days ago. Who showed up at camp this week?
Donovan Smith, and there was, some obviously we've heard throughout since his Twitter post and Instagram post that he made that he might not show up. He's considering opting out, but to see him walk into the facility yesterday was really, a good sign that he's all in, he's coming in. And I mean, a lot of it's been made about, the Brady effect, and the players really see the opportunity that's here. You haven't heard of one Buccaneer player opting out yet, and
right.
Hopefully that continues. And, and that's just also a reflection of how well the Buccaneers have done at the facility to make sure that every player there feels safe and feels comfortable with what's going on.
Right.
The players will have 7 days once that ratification to the 2020 CBA is signed. It was agreed upon last weekend. It still has not been signed. So all these opt-outs you've been seeing are players who don't have a clock up against them. They don't have a timeline where, okay, it's signed, you have 7 days to make a decision. These are all players who have been thinking about it and have decided, hey, I'm going to opt out before I even am put on the clock to opt out.
Right.
Now, the NFL has came in, and while it's still not signed, it said they want to shorten that 7-day window. This was just, I just heard it today. They want to shorten that 7-day window because they feel like some players are taking advantage of that. Some agents are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I heard that.
And that, they're trying to schedule for a bigger contract, a better contract, or, something like that, make a little extra bucks because of the situation. So we'll see where that goes. But until pen is put to paper, these players are opting out just on their own.
I want to say, though, like Donovan Smith goes into the facility, and it was good to see him going in there. But, let's be honest, he still has that opt-out period, and he might just be going in there to get a look at the place. Because, I mean, that's the biggest thing that we in the media, you've been now, Joshua, you're sitting in on all the media. You sat in on yesterday's media session, and then who was yesterday's media session again?
Well, it was Friday. It was Tristan Wirfs.
Right, Tristan Wirfs, rookie quarterback. And you've got one coming up tomorrow, right? Who are you going to be sitting with tomorrow in the media session?
I'll have Mr. Shaq Barrett tomorrow. So
Mr. Shaq Barrett. I wonder if anything's going to come. Obviously, the questions are going to be asked about, signing that franchise tender. Hopefully, he's just going to have all the right answers and just say that he just wants to bring another love, just to show another year exactly what he can do, and then the money will take care of itself on the next season, right? But I wanted to work it back to that Donovan Smith. Donovan gets into the, and he has the little baby at home now. So there's still things that have to be, but hopefully that when he gets to see all of the, inside that Buccaneer bubble, right, if you will. And that's one of the things you and I are going to talk about, that the media, we're not really in that Buccaneer bubble, right? Because everything is still being done via Zoom meetings and players being, available and coaches being available for interviews. But hopefully Donovan Smith does get this inside the Advent Health facility, and he gets to start to see exactly what precautions are being taken and how serious the COVID-19 situation is. And hopefully that just maybe reaffirms his belief that he can play a good season and stay safe and keep his family safe, because having number 76 on an offensive line this year is going to be very important So looks like it's just me and you, Mr. Big Board. Oh, Joshua came back in, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Andrew. So what's going on? We've got the NBA now starting up and the NHL starting up, and of
Yes,
course,
sir.
all the NHL teams are. Are you guys up in Canada trying to? Other than obviously the Canadian teams, are there other teams that you guys are picking to root for? Since both the host cities are there north of the border.
Well, first of all, we should get a lot of the fans at Bucs Report and stuff like that to try and root for me on my days off to try and get into this bubble. I mean, I have found certain ways that I could possibly enter this bubble. Now, obviously, I'm not going to, but it is still a fun idea. Yeah, it's still a fun idea to try and get as close as I possibly can. So with me, I being a Red Wings fan, this is going to sound actually kind of funny. I am the least Canadian hockey fan, I guess you would say, out there. So I love my Red Wings, and I don't usually care for any of the Canadian hockey teams that are up here.
Didn't skate yourself when you were growing up? Weren't much of a hockey player yourself?
Sorry, say that again?
You didn't play hockey growing up yourself on one of those frozen ponds? Because, doesn't everybody's backyard in Canada have a frozen pond on it?
So actually, I mean, you're not necessarily wrong. So growing up in Ontario, there is a lot of frozen ponds, a lot of frozen lakes. Same thing with Vancouver, British Columbia, just in general. The issue is Vancouver hockey players and British Columbia hockey players and born hockey players have this beautiful thing called money in order to allow them to play hockey. Whereas people from Ontario, if you're skilled, it don't matter. You need the money to get there. But at least you can get into an arena. You can show off a little bit of skill and stuff like that. And, Ontario is more full of the Andre Agassi's and, the Michael Jacksons of athletes. Is your dads and your moms.
People with bad hair. Is that what you're saying?
That too, yeah. You got a lot of parents who will.
I think we lost
their jobs. Sorry, you still there?
No, we got you.
Okay. You got a lot of parents that give up a lot of their jobs and a lot of their times in Ontario just to make sure that their kids actually go to school. So that's also the reason why I don't really care for any of the Ontario teams. A lot of stuck-up people.
We're going to give it to you that we will let you root for your Red Wings next year, but just do us a favor here. We can go ahead and end it right now. Root for the Lightning the rest of the season. Don't root for those Boston Bruins. All right, just do me that favor, okay, Andrew? Let's just root for the Lightning.
You know for a fact that I would never. The only time I root for the Bruins is when they're playing the Maple Leafs. Okay, that is how much I detest the Maple Leafs up here.
Don't make me look at the broom out. All right.
All right. We're not going to the sweep. Hey, Joshua, well, I got you. Let me ask you this. It shows here. You had messaged me because what happened was, for those of you that are watching this here today, it was going to be a Cup of Ray at some point today. It just took me a little bit more time to unpack my family who's been in North Carolina for 4 months. But Joshua and I, we started having a chat session going, and all of a sudden I think Joshua and I both realized it kind of turned into a pre-production meeting because Joshua had so many things he was telling me about. So I want to work to another one of those things, and you were telling me about the new photo shoots were going on. So tell me what you hear about the new photo shoots now with the players that are happening.
So if you have the Buccaneers on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or any of the players in general, you've seen them. They went in today. They got their new jerseys on. Some of them got their new numbers. Jamel Dean and
MJ Stewart.
No, not MJ Stewart. Sean Murphy Bunting. They switched their numbers over to 23 and 24, so they kind of did their little photo shoot together. So that was cool to see. But yeah, all the players came in. Devin White, Vita Vey, they all came in. They got their uniforms on, fully dressed up, pads, helmets, everything. Stood in front of the green and black screen and took their pictures. And
nice.
So they'll be using those obviously for promos at a later date. But it was nice to start to see some of these players in those sharp new red unis, and they're back in the facility. That's what that means to me. These veterans are back in the facility, and things are ramping up. Obviously, we have that period of where it's just going to be strength and conditioning, and that will start on Tuesday, August 4th.
Right.
But, going forward from there, afterwards, August 17th is the first day they can throw pads on and really start hitting. And one of the things Bruce Arians said is usually in these practices that they have against each other, there's soft tackling. I mean, they won't tackle to the ground. They'll wrap up and, But with the lack of padded practices, with the lack of preseason, he's going to have some practices that are going to be to the ground tackling, because there's no other way to supplement live action gameplay or, practicing against another team. Now, of course, just like we saw with hockey, these players aren't going to go full bore against their teammates,
Right.
And you don't expect them to, because they're always going to let up a little bit because they don't want to hurt their teammate because of what's at stake. But at least they'll get some practicing, going kind of, let's call it 80% hitting, 80% tackling, instead of the normal 50 to 40% hitting and tackling.
Joshua, let me ask you this, though, and I know it was discussed when they killed the preseason, because we were already talking about the fact that with like the Bengals and the Browns, or the Bucs and the Dolphins, or the Bucs and the Jaguars, there are teams that are geographically close enough that a bus can be taken. And I know that this hasn't been. I know when we said no more preseason, I know one of the things early on that the league said there'll be no scrimmaging against each other, which kind of was playing to that fact that there'll be no scrimmaging. But let me ask you your honest opinion, and Andrew, I'll ask for yours as well afterwards, after Joshua first. Don't you think that you're talking about how it is hard for the teams to go above 80% tackling when they're tackling their own people? And we don't want injuries and such like that in a scrimmage. But do you think there's any chance, if we get clean through the next 2 or 3 weeks and that bubble continues to stay, whatever bubble is, it's really not a bubble, but whatever they continue to put in place for these COVID protocols, and we see success, do you think there's maybe a chance that the NFL and the Shield backtracks on that a little bit and says maybe the Dolphins can come 3 hours up on a bus just to get some scrimmage?
Not at all. The whole reason why they did this and went away with it, and the NFL agreed to it and agreed to the profit loss, not just from fans maybe attending the games, but also the games themselves being aired on television, was because the whole goal for the NFL now is week one. They
Right.
want to see what happens week one. So they want to get there. That's why they're not bringing other players in. They're not doing the traveling. With the travel optics are no buses can be more than 50% capacity, and airplanes is at least one seat in between every player. So, I mean, you're not going to shove up 7 buses of people from, Duval or down from Miami up here. Where we're talking about, especially Miami, which is Broward, Dade County,
hot spot, right?
Very hot spot. But I don't think they do that. I think they want to keep everything crisp and clean with everyone at their own facilities until week one, and then they'll address it obviously after that. I mean, if there's outbreaks after week one, they're gonna have to say, hey, pause the season on week 2, which they built fail-safes into the schedule for that.
Right.
And go from there. But
my point being is that, and Andrew, I'd like to ask you this, is that the fact that all of a sudden week one, 16 teams get on planes and travel across the country, and week one, all of a sudden players are hitting each other for the first time 100%. Whereas if everything is moving safe, if we're not getting the positive cases and these players aren't going out and bringing it in, if the NFL's like, let's say we can get 2 or 3 weeks from now in and say we've had no more positive cases, it was just when they checked in. Andrew, even though Josh is saying it won't happen, do you think, though, a chance for 2 teams to maybe do a quick bus ride for a 2-day scrimmage might be able to? Because other than that, when they hit the ground running week one in these in the stadiums with these lights all on, there's going to be not only a moment of adjustment, and we already know the defense is going to be playing some bad football early on, but it's going to suddenly be a shock.
It is going to be a shock. The first 3 to 4 weeks of the NFL season without any preseason games are going to be one of the most interesting things we have ever seen in the NFL in some time, only because the preseason games have given us the opportunity, obviously, for, not good players, for the rookies and the undrafted free agents to come in and run some vanilla schemes. What that also does is it just gets your footing underneath you and your hands ready and your body ready, that extra contact. The preseason games not being there now become week 1, 2, 3, and 4. So a lot of these, and we don't like to talk about this, but it is the inevitability of the NFL season that when there starts to become the injuries, a lot of the injuries usually happen at camp, and then right usually to week 1 and week 3 of the preseason, only because you got your first squad that goes in and then your second squad that goes in. And a lot of these players when you practice, it's practice. When you play, you're actually making your money. And even when it's preseason, you know, the NFL still generates cash. You still got to go out there if you're an undrafted free agent and prove yourself. The problem is once the season hits, once everything starts going and there's no pause and this, that, and everything else, you know, major fantasy players like myself and Alex, and I know Josh there, we're all going to be sitting on edge watching some of these players that we've drafted in the fantasy because we don't know about, say, you know, injuries from before. A lot of players get brought into the preseason, even if you're a starter. You know, JJ Watt got a couple of reps in a preseason game after his major injury just so he can get back into the swing of things.
Right.
So,
well, not only that, Andrew, I mean, we're talking about fantasy. We'll switch over to fantasy real quick.
Yes, sir.
I know one of my leagues that I'm doing is we're not paying dues up front like we normally do. Dues aren't due until November because of the fluctuation. Say we draft our team and, you know, those first 3 weeks are going well. We're scoring points. We're having fun. We're talking trash to each other. And then, boom, three of our 12 guys have 2 players on their team get hit with COVID. And now the competitive level of that has came down. We're trying to work in fail-safes that if something happens with COVID-19, those people get first crack at waiver if you got players. So it's like there's so much going on. And then do we increase rosters? But if you increase roster size for, you know, your bench players to try to get more people on your bench. Now, what happens if, you know, someone else isn't suffering that and he's got 6 good players on his bench? So we're talking about lowering the bench down to possibly only 4 from 5, multiple IR spots, 1 IR for injury, 1 IR for COVID. So it's like, it's, you know, or maybe having more bench spots, but not drafting them, you know, draft like, you know, take TJ Hushman's out in those last 4 rounds and then leave those bench spots open for possible COVID. It's a very fluctuating thing in fantasy right now. And obviously a very fun game and what could be a fun season with all the moves and all the wide receivers moving and the running backs and the rookies. So, I mean, just fantasy alone is going to be tough.
Josh, can I ask you a question? Obviously, it's competitive against each other, right? And I don't play fantasy football. I've told you guys the reason why. I've tried it. I sit down every time. I do my homework, and then the draft starts, and I draft all Buccaneers. I call my team the idiots. But let me ask you this. Have you guys considered, now, obviously, you don't want to create and it's just because 2020 is a crazy year. It's going to have an asterisk, right? It's just crazy year. Have you guys thought about the possibility of teams within your fantasy football? Like if I have a plethora of running backs, there's our Leo word for the show. But if I have a plethora of backs in my stable and you have a run on to COVID-19, if I could possibly for the week loan you that running back, but the caveat is a player to be named later, because if my wide receivers get hit in week 15 and you're sitting on 3 of them, 2 of them are backups, maybe you could get that back to me. Would that be something you'd also consider as a league?
I mean, it'd be difficult. It depends on matchups, playoffs. It depends on whatever. It would have to be voted on by everybody.
Right.
You know, it's like, say, you know, my Shady McCoy's broke out and he's a guy in Tampa and I have 4 running backs before him that, you know, one of them's on my bench or my flex. So I got Shady just sitting on my bench and, you know, someone grabbed, just to keep it Bucs related, someone grabbed Tyler Johnson. He become the number 3 and he's putting up, you know, 50 yards a game and, you know, 5 catches. He's a 10-point player. He's sitting on your bench because you have, you know, 4 other wide receivers you're starting above him. So you're saying pretty much, hey, I'll give you my 4th running back. If your wide receivers get hit, here you can have one of my wide receivers. It's a lot of complications.
There would be some. Yeah, you might be helping somebody. Yeah. Hey, you know, though, you mentioned Shady. Well, you mentioned Shady there, Josh. And what's this that you told me? What, Shady was over at Skyway Park yesterday working out?
Yes, sir. Already in Tampa Bay. Obviously, he's got to go through the testing process. I'm not sure if he's already reported and got his test. We know that once you get your first test, you get your second test and you're gone from the facility for 72 hours. Come back, take your 3rd test. If all tests are negative, then boom, you're back in, ready to go, which is a good thing too. I mean, there were some players who did not report. Talking to Cam Brate, the report date was Tuesday the 28th. Talking to him on Thursday, he had not reported yet. Donovan Smith just reported. So some players are reporting after that 28th date. And I'm sure they've, the Buccaneers come in when you can come in. So we'll find out now. I mean, Thursday, what would we say? Thursday's the first test. Friday's the second test. 72 hours. Monday, we'll see if, we already know Cam Brate's asymptomatic. But, I mean, we'll see about that, going forward. Monday, Tuesday is the big day, I think, to watch for the Buccaneers to see if they miss any veterans on that COVID-19 reserve list. We've seen big names. I know Andrew is very excited to talk about Matt Stafford, Gardner Minshew. We've had other Lane Johnson from the Eagles, Kenny Galladay, T.J. Hawkinson on that list with Matt Stafford. You think maybe they've been working out this season? I do. So, I mean, and that's one of those things where Tom Brady came under large scrutiny for bringing those guys together. Nobody really talked about, Russell Wilson or Jimmy Garoppolo in Nashville or some of these other guys that were out there working out with places. It was all Tom Brady, rightfully so, because Tom Brady's the GOAT. He's the best player, and he made it the biggest change to another team, I think, since LeBron in the decision. Yeah. So obviously all eyes are on him. But, what we didn't hear about was Matthew Stafford maybe possibly practicing with guys like Kenny Galladay and T.J. Hawkinson, and it's funny how they all fell on that reserve list today and yesterday.
So what do you think about that, Andrew, about Matt Stafford? I know you got much love for Matt.
See, even my buddy who's I got a couple of buddies who are diehard Lion fans and stuff like that, and they know I love Matt Stafford. I just don't like the situation he's in Detroit. See, I actually got a little excited this morning, and I had to go and reread what I read today because I thought Stafford was basically out for the whole entire season.
No, it was just the IR, right? Or
just the COVID. Yeah, just the COVID set out. Which thank you, Josh, for giving me that because I was about to run an article into the ground because that would have basically proven my conspiracy.
That's what we're here for. We're here to help each other out.
Right now, these times, you hear with the opt-outs with the COVID list, and again, like I said, none of these opt-outs are official. Like these these opt-outs, Dante Hightower can say, Nate Solder can say, you know what, I'm going to play. Hear from the players at the facility that's already there. Like, man, they're doing a really good job here. I don't think you ever. I know you're worried, but I think that there's less for you to worry about. Maybe going up against other teams, but here in the facility, I think you're good.
Hey guys,
that is pen and paper. They can reverse those decisions. So I mean, I would be surprised if we see some backouts amongst opt-outs.
I have another guest in the lobby here, and something tells me this guy is going to be able to bring all kinds of talk with regard to us talking about the COVID-19 opt-outs and contracts. Let's go ahead and welcome the dude. How you doing, dude?
Hey.
What is going on, guys?
We were just wondering what you could bring to the table as far as, do we think that the NFL is looking to speed up those opt-ins or opt-outs, I should say, because like Joshua was saying, there looks like some players, maybe a Dalvin Cook or another player maybe is using those for some type of a device to try to get bigger and better contracts?
No.
Well, I would imagine they're gonna put some more parameters on it because you've got players who are literally not even on the bubble, but are almost guaranteed locks to not make a team, and they're opting out and getting paid anyway. You guys, you have to realize this is a fluid process with all these rules and regulations, and it is what it is, right?
Hey, you got to excuse me 1 second, dude. If you don't mind, Joshua, you went to black there. Did the Bruins score a goal and you had to celebrate?
No. They're still down 4-1 with.
All right.
Sorry. Hey, Celtics are winning though.
All right. Well, look and see how happy are we? We just got all kinds of sports on.
Celtics are actually tied right now.
Anyway, dude, I'm sorry. Celtics are tied.
Sorry, dude. Go ahead.
Sorry, dude.
No. Real quick. What Buccaneer running back last year had 0 drops?
Dari?
Peyton Barber.
Oh.
No.
Ronald Jones. Just reading the comments.
It was Ronald there. Nice.
There are some comments.
I'll say this. We have so mush sports to talk about, Ray. mush. What we're looking at here with the NFL, and, people like to be optimistic, and there's nothing wrong with that, but let's be 100% clear here. We see 2 leagues running in a bubble, and it appears to be working. We see the same thing happening overseas with some of the sporting leagues. Then you got Major League Baseball, who's not in a bubble. And if I'm not mistaken, they've had, 2 or 3 games already canceled, postponed, or whatever you want to call it. Let's take this to the NFL. The NFL will do everything in their power, come hell or high water, to start the season. The question is, what happens in week 4 or week 3 when a Matt Stafford has to go back on the COVID reserve, or a Tom Brady, or a Pat Mahomes, or a Lamar Jackson? And that team has to play a divisional opponent next week. And then you fast forward to the end of the year, and you've got those two teams are in a lock for the division title. And one of the games they faced each other was without one of the team's starting quarterback because of precautions. So the NFL will have issues. The NFL will have to postpone, reschedule games, or the NFL is going to have to put an asterisk next to everything in this season, because the NFL for decades has prided itself on building a competitive balance. And now you're going to literally have a week-by-week case where the competitive balance is taken out of the league and out of the team's hands because of the virus. So the big losers here, the gamblers and the fantasy geeks, because who are you going to draft? What happens if he's on the COVID list? Vegas, how are you going to set odds when you don't know if the odd was set the opening odd on Monday, and by Friday 4 players are on the COVID reserve list? Do you cancel all those bets? Do you refund all that money?
The big winners are the daily fantasy guys, the FanDuel, the DraftKings, because you're going to know those guys are ready to go. Those guys are going to rake in money because, like you said, the fantasy guys, they're gonna be a lot that probably drop out. I know people who play for $500,000 leagues. I ran a $150 league. I'm not ponying up that kind of money if I don't know what's going to happen, or if I am one of those guys where say, hey, we're going to wait to pay dues in November, December, and then my team gets hit halfway through the year with COVID, and our buy-in was $150. I'm not going to want to pay that money because of exactly what you just said. But daily fantasy, they're gonna crush this season. And I'm sure if you look at the numbers of basketball and hockey and baseball right now, I'm sure they're already crushing it.
Now,
they could have done that.
Let me paint another scenario. Let's say the NFL trudges through its 17-week season and we get to the playoffs, right? And the opening round is the New Orleans Saints versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody's happy. And then Brady and Breeze get put on the COVID list. Now you've got Winston versus
Gabbert. Winston.
Okay. Or to take it even farther, let's say you get to the NFC Championship game, and it's the Saints and the 49ers, and Drew Brees goes down with COVID. Is that fair for the Saints?
George Kittle goes down.
Hey guys, I've said this all along. I mean, let's say the Buccaneers go 16-0 and they get to the promised land and they're playing over there in 55 at Raymond James Stadium. If we go 16-0, but 4 of those games happen to come throughout the season against teams that were not maybe completely decimated, but had a starting quarterback or running back or half their defense, to me, it's still a victory. You get to the end of as long as it's not a forfeit, because there's not enough guys to play. I mean, Bruce dude, we remember the strike players of '87, and they had guys literally driving up beer trucks and getting out and going into practice, and it was the worst football you'll ever see. Unfortunately, they got that strike settled, and the real players came back, and the scabs were put back on the street. Very few of them made the team, but I still went and saw those games because it was the crappiest football I'll ever see. But at the end of the day, I was still going to watch my Buccaneers play.
Come up north and see worse.
And that's what worries me is you're going to have some key games, primetime games of the week, that their rosters are greatly affected by the COVID virus. And at some point, you kind of have to just, realize the 2020 NFL season is going to fall short of expectations, especially in the Bay Area. I mean, the year started out with the signing of Tom Brady, the trading for Rob Gronkowski, new uniforms, and Bay Area Buccaneer fans were lit. They were jumping around. We're going to the Super Bowl. We're doing everything, right? And then a month later, the COVID hit hard, and people started to realize this might not happen. What I'm trying to get across is that we have to understand each week, like Joshua said, when you're making up your daily betting lines, when you're making your fantasy teams, when you get pissed off because you turn on the Buccaneer game on Sunday and you find out 5 players are on the COVID reserve list, and you get pissed off and you yell and scream and piss and moan. You have to understand the majority of the reason we'll still be dealing with this come NFL time is because a lot of people aren't following the procedures. But not to go political, let's get back to the football part. Do you really want an NFL season where week in and week out the premier players aren't allowed to be the premier players? That's where I kind of have a problem, because at the end of the day, yes, they're players on your fantasy team. Yes, they're players on your Madden franchise mode, but they're people, and they're people who have people that love them. And that's the problem, is we're looking kind of down our long nose at the guys who opt out. And I'll be honest with you, if you're putting the money value as the reason you're going to play, you're saying that I put money above the health and well-being of my family, or the threat against the health and well-being of my family. So for everybody out there that gets mad at these players who opt out, I feel like you need to shut up, because it's not like they're saying, oh, I've already gotten paid, screw the game. They're saying the pay is irrelative to the health and well-being of my friends and family and loved ones. So with that said,
I get that. Now, I totally get that. But for the last 4 months, every morning when I've left here at 7 a.m. to go to my job, that I make a lot less money than those players do. And I did it because I do have to put a roof over our head and dinner on the table, and I have insurance to carry for my family. I would have liked to have been able to say, I'm going to lock in and get an opt-out. And I know I'm comparing apples and oranges here. But what I'm saying is, if these players decide they're going to go play, and if it's because a third-year out contract, or they're afraid they may find someone to replace them on this defense because Todd Bowles is moving forward at the speed of light, I'm happy they're playing. I will never blame someone for not playing, but they're not going to get any kind of extra pity from me because they are playing. Because again, I've had to do my job for the last 4 months to get a job to put family food on my family.
Well, like, that's just your opinion, man.
but to counter that, I don't think your job or anybody who has a job on this screen involves smacking into bodies that are sweaty over and over and over and over again. So,
or people paying to watch you.
But that's the thing, though, with NASCAR, with all these sports, no one is forcing them to do it, and they've all kind of brought in opt-outs, and especially with the NFL, if you're a player and you voluntarily opt out, they're going to give you $100,000, $150,000. Now, I mean, of course, if you're a veteran and you can pay that comes with the caveat that you have to pay it back next season. If you're a veteran and you can do that, then that's great. If you're a young guy, who's an undrafted free agent who maybe got $20,000 signing bonus, that becomes a little harder. Now you have to go back. But I mean, you're talking about players like that. If you have an underlying health condition, they're fronting you $350,000. So I mean, if you can give $150,000 to $350,000 to opt out to take care of your health and safety,
but guys,
I think once you opt in as a player, you've accepted all responsibility. And I mean, yes, obviously it's a sport, it's for entertainment. But as Ray said, they're not going to get any extra sympathy from me. They've had a choice. We don't have a choice.
Hey, guys,
my wife doesn't have a choice. They have to go to work to make money to provide.
I've been going to a warehouse 5 nights a week for the last 4 months. I'm working with guys that are between the ages of 18 and 25 on average, and every one of them, none of them have kids and are married. They're all good guys, but they're still living that young man's dream. And in a warehouse where it's 1,000 degrees, now we had that contract with the government, UPS did, so we had to keep moving because we were doing medicine and food to all parts of country that needed it. And if you guys believe me, if I tell you, if you guys believe that we were wearing masks working in this hot warehouse and literally dying because of the heat, but we're working and we're hustling together. I mean, we're not rubbing up against each other like an offensive defensive lineman, but there was less social distancing going on at times that I would care for. But the point I'm trying to make is that, we've all had to toe that line, and I'm glad these players have the option to go ahead and choose not to play. But hey, once they play, you're still talking about a percentage of people bringing into a percentage into the camp and getting through all of their COVID protocols with the temperatures and the daily testing and social distancing, and there's still going to be that danger. So I'm not saying it's foolproof. I'm just saying that it's a lot less safer than the guys I was going to UPS with every night.
Right, but on the same note, and this isn't a shot at anybody, especially my boy Ray here. On the same note, you're working the UPS job because you chose to. You knew the inherent risk going in when the COVID virus came.
Yes.
If you chose to opt out of working there, you lose your pay. That to me is more of a political discussion, because the fact that you have to work a second job to make ends meet is the problem, not the fact that UPS is the same as working in the NFL and should have the same rights to opt out. So that's a social economic issue, which is well above the pay grade of any of us right now. But my point is, we don't have to worry. In Donovan Smith's case, perfect example. He's worried about his family. Okay, that's the number one priority. At the end of the day, Ray, you work two jobs for your family. Joshua, you do what you do for your family. Same with Andrew. We can't hold them accountable because they have an expertise skill set well above ours and are actually involved in a corporation, the NFL, that has a union. And I guarantee you, Ray, if you guys had a union,
we do have a union.
Then why wouldn't they stand up for you?
No, they did. We had things in place where if we had to go on quarantine, our jobs were covered. We weren't paid for not being there, but we would not lose our jobs. We were given the options to opt out of working, but they weren't going to give us, because for me, a part-time employee, it wouldn't have been $150,000 loaned toward next year's salary. It would have been a 12-pack of beer and a pack of cigarettes. But
well, that's the other thing too. Now, isn't this buyout? Aren't these opt-outs loans against their existing contracts?
Well, if they don't have a pre-existing condition or someone who's dangerous in the house. But hey, Donovan got $16 million in 2019, and rightly so. He deserves it. So, it's not like he's losing his job if he doesn't show up. If he stays home for the safety of his wife and child, God bless you.
That was the point I was getting to. It's not just when I was talking about Donovan. It's not just about his wife and child. It's about everybody who comes in contact with his wife and child, and everybody who comes in contact with those people. So it's like that old shampoo commercial, right? And you're old enough to remember. The virus tells two friends, and they tell two friends,
tell their friends.
And so on and so on. So that's the problem is, someone like, let's say, we'll bring up former Buccaneer Jameis Winston, right? Jameis Winston loves his grandma. We know that, all right? His grandma has pre-existing conditions. He has to factor that in or not see her the entire season.
Well,
so
James,
we're asking guys to forego their family for a 17, 18 week period or run the risk of infecting them. And any one of you, regardless of the pay, numbers are great. Money is great.
Right.
But having the people in your inner circle, your loved ones, stay health and safety, and you not being responsible for transmitting a disease above and beyond them, that should be paramount. And that's the problem. No one is considering anything except the money.
But here's the thing. As far as Jameis is concerned, don't worry about, Jabu, take your time off, go to Selma, be with your grandma. Taysom Hill's got your job there anyway. But no, here's what I say. This is why if I'm making if I'm Donovan Smith and I'm getting paid $16.5 million this year, okay? I've got two people I employ full time with the infrared sterilizers. I have an entire floor at one of your 4-star hotels in the Bay Area, and when I come back from a road game at say Denver, and I ride on the airplane, I quarantine in that place for 72 hours. Number one, the Bucs are giving me a test every day, but I still want to make sure that there's no quick onset because when I go home, so for that 6-month season, these players that do decide to take that money and play, they also have got money that they can take I couldn't stay in Motel 6 tomorrow night if you ask me. I don't got that money, but these guys can go and have a bachelor pad, if you will. Of course, we hope nothing else is going on there, but they can quarantine from their family day by day until the tests come back, and they can also keep it real.
That's just the thing, too.
Go ahead.
that's just the thing too with these players. I mean, like you said, it's not all about the money. I mean, some of these players, for example, Javon Hagan, who we talked to multiple times, it's about a shot, a chance. He's an undrafted free agent. He doesn't have the luxury of having the bankroll or anything like that. He's got to go in and try to prove and try to win a roster spot. Or if he opts out next year, there's another wave of undrafted free agents. Now he's got to go. It's a difficult. This is a difficult decision to talk about for every sport, every player.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you've seen these opt-outs. And if a player opts out, how dare you, anyone, to put shame on them or to make them feel bad for doing what they think is the right thing. Obviously, we have a everyone knows that I've come from New England and that I have a rooting interest in the Patriots. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also my team. But when all those players dropped out, the first thing I didn't think was, oh man, we're screwed or they're screwed or the Patriots. It was good for them because they need to take care of their family. Anyone who thinks different is whatever, regardless of money. But on that being said, once these players opt in, as Ray said, I understand the safety and everything like that, and I do feel for them as well because they are putting their lives at risk. Whether either they need to make money, have to make money, or just for the love of the game because they don't know what else.
Yes.
You hear a lot of players in all sports that after they retire, they don't know what to do because all they've known was the game. So I mean, once they opt in and decide, hey, I'm going through this. I'm going for this. Do I still have sympathy and hope that they're okay? Yes, but you've taken that, you've elected that option and that risk. So now, I mean, if something does happen, those are the kind of the consequences.
Well, Andrew's our north of the border guy, and he's been a little quieter. Andrew, let me ask you, since COVID-19 became such a big thing in mid-March, I mean, everywhere around the Canadian countryside, you still see your people going out there and tapping those maple trees to get that syrup.
Yeah, actually, we actually officially, as of yesterday, this is a little weird, but in Edmonton, you have to wear a mask when you're in public now, no matter what. In my city, which is 15 minutes away, you don't. So it's a little weird here with the way that they do it and stuff like that. But the one thing I wanted to say with regards to some of these players is I don't know about some of the gentlemen in the group here and how they've grown up and how they've lived and stuff like that. But I do know about some of the individual players in the NFL. And to give you just a quick idea of what I'm talking about. I myself, since the age of 14, have lived the highest of highs. I mean, the highest of highs. Keith knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I have also lived the lowest of the lowest. I have had $250,000 on me. I have also had 2 cents on me. And I've had to live through both of those circumstances. Now, there are a lot of players in the NFL that we don't talk about because it's not, say, newsworthy. But there's a lot of these undrafted free agents and a lot of these players who are signed to these contracts who still live in a car, who still live in a tiny, tiny home and stuff like that, these are the guys who, if I was an owner, if I was a GM and stuff like that, these are the gentlemen and women, because we have women coaches and personnel now too, but these are the men and women that I actually would want to start a team up with, because it doesn't necessarily matter about the money. They can take the money, they can leave the money. What it matters to them is working, the health of themselves and their family.
Hey, Andrew, hold that thought for me, okay? Because I got to get. I promised Joshua I'd have him out of here. He's got another thing he's got to do tonight. So just hold that thought for 1 second. Joshua, tell everybody where you can find them, where they can find you.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me on here. Twitter at Joshua_C_Allen. Make sure you go follow me. I'm in these press conferences. I'm live tweeting them as they go out. Tomorrow with Shaq Barrett. Wednesday would be Bruce Arians. So make sure you go follow me on Twitter for all that information. Ready to touch. As soon as it comes out of his mouth, it'll be up on Twitter. So follow me there. Also, I have the Audible every Wednesdays. This week's guest will be Bradley Pignon. I've been giving away prizes every week. Figure out what's going to come up this week. It's a pretty good one, so I think you guys will like that. Otherwise, just want to shout out everybody else doing their thing. Ray, Alex, obviously Andrew, Citro, Keith, Peter.
Brother, one more question for you. Mention that live, the live.
Oh, yes. So Auction of Champions. Yes. They're obviously one of my sponsors and one of Bucs Report sponsors. Go check them out. It's auctionofchampions.com. If you mention Bucs Report in the How We Heard About You section, you'll get $5 off. Just to tell you something right now, they have some beautiful red Color Rush alternate Tampa Bay Buccaneers helmets, full size, signed by Rob Gronkowski. The bid right now is at $206, well under what the helmet itself costs. Not to mention Rob Gronkowski's $250 cost to sign an autograph. They have a jersey on there, a red custom jersey by Gronk signed on there. It's at $154. Again, his autograph is $250. You count him the jersey, and then they have a nice piece. It's a Sam Weish signed 8x10, inscribed with "You're the best" and Bucks 95 with a date on there. That's up for $10 minimum bid right now with no current bids. This auction ends. This auction ends on Wednesday at 11. So
I'm
go
a little
check it
upset
out.
though, because I told you before we went on. I said don't mention the Sam Weish because Sam Weish was the guy, and we lost Sam in 2019. And I only $10 on that autograph picture.
No
so
reserves.
I'm on that. So everybody forget what Joshua just said about that. But as far as Malectronic and
Malectronic,
yes,
make sure you check them out. 40% off. ShopSoundsPerfect.com. 40% off.
I want you to bring that and the sausage over, all right?
Yeah.
Hey, brother, you take care now. We'll see you later, Josh.
You too.
Have a good one, Josh.
See you later, Keith. See you later, Andrew.
Hey, Andrew, before we get back to you, I want to read a couple of these questions out there, if you don't mind, do you? And I'm going to ask you to answer some of these. So James Berry says, if Donovan Smith decides not to play this season and we move Worth to left tackle, who do you see playing right tackle? That one's for you, Josh. I'm sorry, for you, Andrew.
I would say if anything, we're going to bring in. We'll probably use Haig. I think when they signed Haig, I hope I say his last name right. Haig is a good. Johnny has said this before. Haig is a good bring in because he can play almost every position on that O-line. So if Donovan decides not, if he decides to opt out, or if we have an injury on that O-line, and we're just saying one right now, I'm going to say it's going to be Haig. But if we start getting into the say one opt-out and an injury, or two opt-outs or anything like that, that's where we're going to have to start really seeing the depth of our O-line, or really hope that Alex Kappa can start stepping it up a little bit more.
Well, let me ask you this, dude. I mean, we know that there's still a free agent right tackle out there that was actually on the Bucs last year. Do you see maybe any chance of that guy coming back here?
Well, yeah, I'm a little shocked that with the expanded rosters and the threat of players constantly going in and out of the COVID reserve list, that they haven't brought DeMar back. It could be something as simple as they can't agree on how much money, or DeMar played for quite a while. He's got quite a bit of money. He might not be interested in putting his health on the line, and that's kind of what is holding everything up. And like we were saying earlier, it's fine to think that the players like a Donovan Smith can get hire a team to keep him COVID free and get a room separate from his family. But let me ask you a question. If any of us have to go to our job and there's a risk of health concerns, or we get something from our job, wouldn't it be our job that would have to pay the bill for all that?
Yeah, and that's probably you're working it back to the NFL and the NFLPA and what they're talking about doing.
And that's the problem. The NFL and Major League Baseball spent too much time worrying about the money and not worrying about the procedures to put in place to protect people. Whereas feels like the NHL and the NBA did it the opposite way. And that's the problem, not just on the NFL, not just in sports, but with this virus in general. The reason people are mad and want to go back to work is because the government hasn't done the appropriate things to help them financially. And I know everybody's going to whine and say, you can't just give people money. Well, in the middle of a pandemic, you can damn sure give people money more so than you gave corporations. By the way, the tally right now, the tally of money that the corporations have gotten in this country from the COVID virus could have literally put and sit down. Oh, wait, you already are. Could have literally, instead of giving these corporations huge amounts of money that they just stick in an offshore account or buy back stocks with, you could have given every Social Security number in the United States, $2 million cash, and still come out cheaper than you did with what you gave the corporations. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not an economic major, but I can tell you one way to stimulate the economy: give everybody $2 million. Right.
I'd get
So,
pretty stimulated right quick.
Yeah.
So my point-
it's not
my-
just the economy getting stimulated.
my point is, the when the money becomes the lead topic during a pandemic, you've already jumped the shark. So
You've already lost.
we are now on top of the shark because we jumped here, and we have to, as fans, as media members, and as human beings, understand that there's a very good chance the NFL season doesn't come to completion this year.
Hey,
There's
guys,
even
go ahead. I was going to say, let me read some of these comments because I'm trying to get used to working on reading comments on Cup of Freight because I have some great viewers. I'm going to go back to this. Jeremiah, friend of the show, Jeremiah Hefner says, is Rojo still on our team? I think he's got tongue-in-cheek on that one. Kenneth King says, you sound not great. Ronald Jones never dropped one ball in college or in 2 years in the NFL. I mean, we just talked earlier about the fact, like you said, dude, that Ronald Jones didn't drop a ball last season, did he?
Well, no. He and as far as never dropping a ball. By the way, that Kenneth King guy, he was removed from the chat because he thinks it's funny to act like an asshole. Oh yeah, okay. I said asshole, but that's okay. I'm the dude. I'm the dude, and we three are running the show, not you, Mr. King. But
yeah,
just to be clear, Ronald Jones is an exceptional back.
Right.
I would buy into the narrative that Peter H. Blake has put in that he hasn't underperformed. He's been underused. And
what's Peter always say? It's lack of ball. Anyway, go ahead. I forget it.
Well, yeah, he's dyslexic. He had. Well, yeah. At least we can say dyslexic. Ronald Jones has every tool in the book that he needs. His big thing coming into the league was. And we'll be honest, it could be blamed on the Kurt Cutter coaching staff. But Ronald Jones' big issue in my eyes in the beginning was the fact that he couldn't pick up a blitz. He couldn't read the blocking scheme. He didn't know what his assignment was. With that said, bringing in a quarterback like Tom Brady, who doesn't wait till the next day to tell you did wrong. He tells you in real time, and he's not scared. And we're already seeing the effects of this in the practices held secretly,
yes,
and the few practices they've had at One Buck Place.
Tom Brady, he'll point out the blitz. He'll show his running back where the pressure's coming from before the snap's even made. That's even beautiful. And then if it is missed after, like you said, he'll directly tell him immediately thereafter because always wants to continue to get better.
Well, and Ronald Jones, and I'm going to make the bold prediction. So Andrew, you can go ahead and yell and scream at me. It's okay. I like it. Ronald Jones will have 1,200 yards from scrimmage this year.
Ooh, like it.
Ronald Jones he'll have 10 or more touchdowns total.
Ooh.
Shady McCoy is going to have roughly 700 to 800 yards of total offense and probably 5 to 6 touchdowns. But are you waiting for this, Bucs fans? What does Shady McCoy do that no Buck on the team has been able to wrap their head around for 20 years?
Catch the ball out of the backfield?
Return kicks.
Thank you. I was just about to say return kicks.
Yeah, but
Shady McCoy will take at least one punt or kick to the house this year.
Nice.
Shady McCoy will have a top 15 average on kick returns this year.
That's going to be predicated upon how fast Keyshawn Vaughn gets back in that backfield because, I mean, I definitely see Shady jumping out there and they're going to want to let him do it just to pump the team up. But, as long as Keyshawn is doing well back there, because otherwise I think he serves even more of an important role in backing up or working in that tandem backfield with Rojo.
So, Ray.
Yes, Andrew.
I have just a quick one. Sorry to interject you, gentlemen, and then continue. This is more for the fans. I want to see which fan in the comment section will get it the fastest. Who is the last Buccaneer player to return a punt or a kickoff home for a touchdown?
I know Keith knows it, and I know it. It was a touchdown. It was a kickoff. It wasn't a punt.
Yeah, it was a kickoff, and I'll just let me know who the first fan in the comment section says
Let's
it.
see. Well, I want to get back to another fan, Dana Doucette here, and I wish we'd read this when Joshua was on there, but Joshua probably saw it because he has admin rights on this. But Josh has been killing it with the interviews, and what do you think, dude? Has he not been killing it with these interviews we got lined up, and the interviews that are still coming down the pipe?
Oh man, you first of all, you can't take away anything from anybody here at Bucs Report. I mean, we got one guy, we refer to him as Spida, who goes live every night of the week. Hell, I actually think he's gone live from his toilet before.
I think he has.
We've got a staff here. We've got, gosh, I think it's up to 9 live shows a week, counting 5 times on the sports web and 8 other shows. But going back to Joshua, because we got to show some love to Joshua. All right.
Hell's yeah.
Hells.
Joshua, like you guys out there watching and listening, Joshua was a listener. He was a viewer. He would call in every once in a while to Peter's show, chime in with his 10 cents worth of information. And he just kept persistingly, for lack of a better expression, shoving his name in our face. And we decided it would be a good idea to bring the guy on as a regular on Peter's show. And within a week, this guy is nailing interviews with a bunch of the undrafted free agents the Buccaneers signed. Not only that, he launches his new show within a month. The guy is straight hustle, and you can't take anything away from that. But what I want to point out, what's best about Joshua is the fact that unlike most of you chowderheads and most of you snowbirds, when you move down from the great white north, because it's so awesome up there, as you guys like to remind Florida natives every day while you're here living in our state. But you come down here every year and you complain that they got better than this here, they got better than this there, but you guys still move down here and you still retire here. So just so we're clear, you spend your entire adult lives working in the Northeast so you can hope to save enough money to come and live down here. So when you do come down and live down here, you need to follow Joshua Allen's lead. No one's saying you can't cheer for the teams you grew up with, but if you live in the Bay Area, support the Bay Area teams. If you live in Miami, support the Miami teams. Don't be that douchebag that comes down here and tells us how great up north was and how everything down here sucks. Because we're all just looking at you going, why are you here then?
Oh, and
I mean, I haven't been down there yet, but
I also want to tell you, Andrew, I mean, I'll make no bones about it. If we were over at, the deck in Isla del Sol, or we're down here somewhere watching some sports today, and if my boy Joshua walks in with that Bruins sweater on, he's gonna get some serious raspberries. I mean, we're gonna give him the business, and we're gonna do the same with you wearing that Red Wings jersey there, Andrew. So I mean, it's all in good fun. Nobody gets permanently injured, but you'll be given the Tampa Bay business because that's just how we roll.
So check this out, boys. It's funny that I don't think anybody in our group has really noticed this before. So follow me on this. You ready for this?
Go.
All right. So Josh, his last name is Allen. So let's think of him as the Buffalo's quarterback for just a moment here. Okay. So when Josh was in our comment section, joining us and coming up with some great content, I still remember the first phone call he gave us, and he went on for about 7 minutes. And I sat there so quiet, being like, this guy's got a freaking point, man. That was almost like the Bills and a couple other teams having their, post combine interviews with Josh Allen, the quarterback. And now, isn't it just fitting that draft, there was 2 quarterbacks that went ahead of him, and I won't obviously name any names because I don't know the story that well, but I mean, there was a couple of people that may have been at Bucs Report or associated with Bucs Report, and they're no longer, and they're not necessarily the quarterbacks of old, because it was, if I am not mistaken, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that made the trade with the Buffalo Bills that brought Josh Allen to the Buffalo Bills. Am I not correct?
You're going deep on that one for me. You're saying that trade. Who would the Bucs have traded? Who did we get from the Buffalo Bills that they got that draft pick?
Now, I can't remember. I believe it was at number 14. And if I do remember, I think it might have been Vernon Hargraves.
Oh, I think you might be right. We traded back to trade up, and they end up getting Josh. Oh,
yeah. Now, isn't it kind of cool? Isn't it kind of cool? Now, it doesn't all come around full circle, but isn't it kind of cool that we got Tom Brady, and he was in the AFC East at one point, which is currently where Josh Allen is. But we got Joshua Cole Allen, who went from the AFC East down to the NFC South, and he is currently with us at Bucs Report.
And we almost got a defensive back to come from the New York Jets. I'm just kidding. We never would have got out. And who do we get from the Dolphins? Oh, and Ryan Fitzpatrick comes back and plays for the Buccaneers because they, anyway. No, I did want to say, but Andrew, nobody's answered that question yet. I don't want you to give that answer yet. Your question again was, we've determined it was a kickoff return. What was I know who it was. Keith, are you still there? No, dude checked out. Last name, does his last name begin with an M?
I do believe it does.
Is in second letter an I?
I do believe it is.
Okay, so I know who it was, but let's see if anybody else saw. So Joshua Cole says sign Eric Berry. Let's see. Because we don't have them, Shady wouldn't have done that. That's Jeremiah again. Gonna go ahead and nobody answered. It was Minter, right?
Yes, sir. From what I got off the top of my head, it was Minter.
Top of my head, I can't remember Minter's first name.
Was it? I want to say Kevin, but I'm
Kevin Minter. Yes. Did I ever I've told you and before I let you go here, I've told you my punt. I know I told you this one. If I didn't tell me my story about when Vernon Turner returned the first punt for a touchdown in Buccaneer history. Did I ever tell you that story?
No, sir. And I want to hear this before I go now.
I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna give it all to you, people out there that watch Cup of Ray faithfully. You've heard this story a million times. I will put the picture on my Facebook page later. So anyway, it was mullet times. This was back in, I think it was '93, maybe '94. Our season tickets.
When I was a baby and had a mullet, so yeah.
You were a baby, yeah, and you know the way. You're very versed in the way of the mullet. But
Yep.
Let me just say that anyway, I went down to get a beer. Went down. My season tickets were right there low, and it was, like I said, west side toward the south end zone. And I go to use the restroom and get a beer, and I'm coming back. And right as I'm coming up the thing, I can see the Detroit Lions punter gets the punt and punts it, right? So right as I'm coming out of the tunnel, I'm looking up as if you can see me. I'm looking up and I see the ball. I love watching punts over at the stadium live, and I see the punt go, and boy, he really got a hold of it. In fact, he outkicked his coverage, and Vernon Turner comes down with the ball. So I continue to go around so I make the turn, and I'm coming up to concrete. So now I'm facing Vernon Turner coming right down the sideline, and I'm here to tell you, Andrew, when he went by me, and I was, third row up, and I could hear, I mean, he was tearing up some grass, and he went right by me and across the goal line, and Channel 10 or Channel 8 was right there with the Action News, and they were right there covering it from field level looking up, and there you are, right there you see me, mullet down to here, holding my beers, lost one, celebrating that big, so you go back on YouTube, and the video is 30 years old, but you go back and watch it, and I can get right to the point, and you can't look at me and say, oh yeah, I recognize Ray, but I know it's me, and I'll circle it for you, and then I'll autograph it and send it up there for you. How's that, my friend?
Oh, that would be absolutely amazing, dude. Are you kidding me? You send me that picture autograph, that's going on the big board for every damn episode, that's for sure.
Speaking about big board, when are you going to be doing any more voiceovers for Shooter in the Stash? Because, we were talking again about it last night, that video. Just, if you guys out there haven't seen the latest Shooter in the Stash video, you have to. Our boy Andrew did a voice on it. Have they talked to you about, because you got some great, people don't realize you've got quite a deep collection of voices. I'm not going to drop, Gollum. I'm not going to drive Christopher Walken, but I'm not going to drive these names. But have they gotten with you about doing anything else in the near future?
Yeah. Hey, they called me, and I've sent my contract over. It's being looked over, and yeah. I'll be back on there soon.
Hey, let me ask you this. I see a couple of names. The Bucks cut a couple of players, Schnell and Mickens. They play and Leggett. Right now, I kidded around because Leggett had number 87 before Gronkowski got in here, and of course, it was never even. There was a talk about how when Chris Godwin let number 12 go to TB, but Leggett number 87, Gronk was getting that one all together. But you saw that those players were cut here this weekend. Schnell, Mickens, and Leggett and DeAndre Hall. Did you have anything about those players that you thought, or something you thought that they had to show the team, or did you kind of think they were bubble players all along?
Well, Leggett's been around for a couple of years. I mean, he's always been just one of those, and I mean it in all respects. He's been one of the names that has just been kind of when you got people like me who are trying to study the Buccaneers from a young age and stuff like that, you start to, just know all the names at the bottom of the roster. And Leggett's been there for a while. The only thing, I mean, all respect to him, all respect to, again, all the players on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm just happy that the Canadian didn't get cut, man. It's hard up here in Canada, and stuff like that. So as long as we keep the Canadians on the rosters, I'm happy.
Well, and people forget Leggett. I believe we're saying that name right. He was actually a tight end with Clemson, and when they played against Alabama, when of course O.J. Howard was a tight end with Alabama, but did people forget Leggett had like a nice big 78-yard catch from Clemson quarterback. Now he's with
Trevor.
Texas. What's that?
Ellinger.
No, yeah, with the Texas quarterback. Anyway, Leggett had a big catch there in that game for them. I mean, Leggett had some great hands and fast, big tight end. But I guess it just became a numbers game, and they're going to have an expanded practice squad this year. I don't know if Leggett will be eligible to go back there, but I know he's been around for 3 or 4 years and he knows the system. But of course, they got to work those numbers to get them down to 80, and that's what all the teams are doing now. Let me see if there's anything else here.
No worries.
No, really, that's about it, brother. I just wanted to bring a little Sunday afternoon show because it was, I was on the road for 11 hours yesterday and I could not, and that's why I needed you guys, and I appreciate you and Joshua and the dude coming on with me because just kind of caught me up, and maybe I thought if there's anyone else out there that could catch this late afternoon cup of Ray, maybe they'd enjoy the information too. So really, that's about it, brother. But do me a favor, why don't you go ahead and remind us where we can find Big Board and anything you got going on.
So before I get into that, I'll just say a couple just quick things for you. One, Ray, every time you have me on, it is just a cup of sunshine. I enjoy being on your show. It is nice. Obviously nothing on Peter. I love being on Peter's show too. Peter's show, I got to come like prepared and mind ready and stuff like that. With you, it's nice and easy. It's like just having a cup of Ray, That also being said, I want to give a major shout out, even though we just did, but another major shout out to Josh. He has been killing it. He has helped not only me, but has helped many of the other guys at Bucs Report just with the little things. It's been awesome seeing everybody act Canadian and bring him in as if he's been one of us, the whole time. I mean, same with you guys bringing me in. So major shout outs to Josh. You've been a great contribution to the Bucs Report and to North Sports being my first guest. You will be seeing me pretty soon on Bucs Report. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics, want to see what I can do for a show. Obviously, I don't want to step on some toes either. But I do have North Sports coming back online on August 15th. Got the first 6 shows basically written down. I have a couple of guests that'll be going soon. I won't get into details yet because I like to leave surprises. And the big giveaway this year, I won't say obviously until we get into the show, but the big giveaway that we have this year, to give you a little hint, it's going to be nice and spicy. So you guys are going to want to tune in. Make sure to like and share any of the North Sports stuff so that you can get into the entry. And as always, Buck Report fans, I'll always be around. The Canadian doesn't go anywhere. I'm loved by all, and I love all. So you will be seeing me from time to time. And as always, Ray, it's always a pleasure to have
brother. It's
me.
Always a pleasure to be talking to you. But as always, you're an enigma wrapped in a mystery, and you're going to leave us with that spicy comment. So now you got me really wondering what you're talking about, brother. But thanks again for coming on here with me today, and we'll be seeing you real soon.
Anytime. As soon as those borders are open and I can get down there, we're going to be together, brother.
And you're going to be bringing something with you. You got it.
Right.
Hey, brother, take care. Good talking to you, Andrew. We'll talk to you soon.
Every time's a good time. Thanks again, Ray.
See you, brother. So anyway, guys, thanks again for joining me. I know there's a billion things I didn't cover, but just wanted to get together with my boys. We hadn't had a chance to chat, and hopefully we brought a little bit to the table as far as some of that COVID-19, some of the players opting, maybe moving up that opting out period, reasons why. We mentioned a few reasons why, contractually speaking, and stuff like that. But thanks again for joining me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday evening and a good start out to the week, because now we're on beginning week 2 of training camp, and pretty soon in a couple of weeks they're going to start putting them pads on, and then we're going to start making contact, and we're just going to keep looking for everything to remain positive. You got baseball, you got hockey, you got the NBA basketball on, and again, as I've said all along, those are going to be our early tests for our NFL, so that the NFL can continue to watch what's going on in other leagues and take the best of what's working and do away with the worst of what's not, and continue to put together a package here for a upcoming 2020 NFL season, so your Tampa Bay Buccaneers and those Tom Brady led group can go out there and just have a great 2020. So you guys know how I always end it. I'm going to end it like I always do. Everybody needs to know that somebody cares. Why don't you be the one to let them know? And if you can't, let me know, and I'll be the one to let them know. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this special afternoon cup of Ray here on the Bucs Report.